This is my lesson called The Story Beneath the Story, Practicing Inference. I developed these lessons because a number of my transitional readers have trouble inferring what's happening in the books they're reading. They're able to talk about the things that are happening right on the pages of their text, things within the four corners of their books, but they can't move deeper than this. They need support moving beyond the literal comprehension of the text. And this is something that doesn't seem to come naturally to many students, and therefore I feel must be implicitly taught and practiced. In these lessons, students will connect what they know to what they're reading. They'll learn to use clues from their books, such as the cover, pictures, words in the text, to make predictions and conclusions about what the author is trying to say. I have targeted grades 3 through 5 as my band for these lessons because I feel like those students are the ones who really need to begin inferring as they approach more complicated text. I've broken the lessons into 5 different smaller lessons that will systematically approach practicing these skills of inferences. I'll touch upon the printouts as I go through each session. The materials and technologies are pretty common for classrooms. I've included some text that I really like to use when I work on inference. I've also included use of the Lumens Ladybug document camera as my technology of choice. I use that a lot in my classroom so I can project a book or a picture for my students as they're sitting at their seat as a different vehicle than holding it up while we're sitting on the carpet. I've included and highlighted the national standards for English language arts that are associated with these lessons, as well as the Common Core standards in literacy that we use here in Maine. The sessions, like I said, are broken down. I use a lot of scaffolding throughout these lessons, a lot of modeling and guided practice until they're ready to practice inferring on their own. Session 1 begins with them practicing inferring pictures and photographs. And we talk about the importance of looking at these pictures. I've included an independent practice of what's the story behind the pictures, where the students can independently look at a picture and infer what's happening after we've practiced it together as a group. Session 2 again reinforces the importance of looking at pictures and using prior knowledge when they're inferring. And in this session we use The Widow's Broom by Chris Van Allsburg, and I use this text because I think the illustrations are just so rich. I cover up the text and we just look at the words and again kind of infer what's happening. Session 3, then I take off those covered up words and we add another tool to our inference toolkit. So we talk about that when readers infer, they need prior knowledge, they look at the pictures of the text, but they also use the words the authors use to kind of dive deeper into their comprehending. In this session, students will also jump into some group work where they'll look at a book and as a group infer what they think the author is trying to say. I've included my book group reflection sheet. It's something I use often with my students as they work in book groups or book clubs, and it allows them to kind of assess how they did, how their group did, as well as the teacher to show growth. Session 4, we are going to continue moving along with inferring and their inference skills. In this session, I'll be using a book that I'm reading aloud as our chapter book and discussing with the students how there's this idea of this is how they could plan, how they make inferences. They could look at pictures, they could look at words, they could make predictions, and all of this is a way that they could practice inferring what's happening. So as I read from the chapter, I would be practicing with the students as a group. We would be inferring together based on the pictures or the text about what's happening. They would then go back to their seats and have some independent practice. Session 5 and beyond allows students to use their own just right books, and as they read independently, making inferences about what the author is saying. I've also included my own conferring with readers chart. It's something that I use as I circulate around independent reading time, and this is something that, again, I talked about practice. Inference is a tough skill. It's something we're going to have to keep hitting upon throughout the year. So through my conferring planning sheet, I'm able to notice if my students are inferring and then give them some teaching points if they seem to need practice with it throughout the year. In terms of extensions, I've included charades, other body language reading activities. I think those are all important skills with inference. I also would do a lot of thinking aloud about inferences throughout the day, so when we see a teacher through our glass door, we can infer what she's doing just by looking at her body language. I really like these lessons because I think that they break up inference, which is such a tough skill, into smaller steps and give the students practice doing this very important comprehension skill. Thank you for listening.